Wonder Woman, Gods and Mortals. I have the Absolute Edition. It comes in many different versions over the years. It is an older story. The Absolute Edition is lovely. And I did do a video kind of overview of this, which I'll leave a link of somewhere, I'm sure. This basically collects the first 14 issues or so of the revamped Wonder Woman that originally came out in the late 1980s. And this was on the back of a lot of DC characters and Marvel characters being revamped in the 80s. And George Perez, Len Wein, Greg Porter and many others were essentially trying to recreate and recraft Wonder Woman for a new generation and a new set of readers. And I should say that I'm only going to be speaking about the 14 issues that kind of take into they're grouped together as Gods and Mortals as a story arc, really. I know it's collected in omnibuses and the series goes on in many different directions, but we're just going to focus on this story arc, the first 14 issues of this story arc, really. The main important, most magical and wonderful thing about the whole thing is the art. It genuinely is. I've got some serious issues with a lot of the stories, a lot of the character developments, a lot of the writing, but I have not a single issue at all with the art. The art is superb throughout. I mean, George Perez and the inking team and the creative team firing on all cylinders. Every page, you could just take it out and shove it on your wall and it would look glorious and beautiful, and that's no understatement. It really is some of the best comic book art out there. It's got that classical feel to it, but it certainly feels kind of chaotic but well ordered at the same time. It's really a beauty to behold, I think. And in the Absolute format, it genuinely gives you pause for thought to really focus and look at those beautiful pages and panelings. I mean, the whole thing is a beauty to behold in artistry, and I will be going through some things to some people because this story arc and this generation of Wonder Woman is very much beloved, and I'll probably say a few things that will annoy some people, but let me put it right from the start is that I have no issues with this from an artistic point of view. Zero. I love it on every level. I've never seen Wonder Woman so joyous and so exuberant in flight and in discovering herself. And when she's sad and when she's lonely and confused, you feel for her and empathetic to her just by looking at the art, not even by reading anything. But then when she's flying and when she's overjoyed with kind of the freedom that she's given in the world and on Paradise Island, it just comes across, it's just a wonderful book for artistry, I think. Let's get to the story. The book opens up basically linking in for the first time properly, you know, Wonder Woman with Greek mythology. Wonder Woman has always kind of flirted with Greek mythology, but this was the first time that they really pushed it wholesale and really got this big, overwhelming, large-scale narrative where the Greek gods are kind of brought into the fold. And it pretty much redesigns Wonder Woman's origins to be more like a kind of Greek melodrama more than anything. So you'll see all the main Greek gods, you know, there's more Greek gods than you even thought would probably exist. So the writers have certainly gone out of their way to research Greek gods because some of them are so random and so obscure that they would have had to have read some serious books on Greek gods to have found out about some of these guys. But essentially, it focuses first and foremost on Ares and the god of war being in opposition to many of the female gods trying to create a new race of being on the world. The idea being is that mankind overall is not as enamoured with the gods as they once were, and they rely on the belief of humanity to empower them and make them stronger and all that type of thing. And so the female gods kind of devise an idea of creating this race of people that would worship the gods unlike any other race. And so they go and they resurrect souls of women who have been murdered and killed, and basically their lives have been cut short by man and mankind. They resurrect them and give them a rebirth and create a race that would become known as the Amazons. But Ares hates this, he despises it all, and he wants to kind of undercut this and get rid of it because he believes the war and violence is the only thing that will really reinforce and reinvigorate man's belief, because that's the only thing they understand is warfare. Instantly, you've got a lot of different gods with a lot of different opinions and a lot of different kind of plays being put in place. But fundamentally, the big thing is the female gods being put in opposition to Ares, and then by kind of creation and by proxy, really, the Amazons being pitted wholly against Ares and his way of dominating and cultivating worship of the gods on planet Earth. So Heracles is introduced, and he's one of the first to have Ares kind of poison his mind against the supremacy and the strength of the Amazonian race. And so Heracles goes out of his way to try and battle and defeat them, because he won't bow to women, you know, he dominates men and warfare, and again Ares is kind of poisoning his mind, but he's also reinforcing the beliefs that he's already got, in fairness. He's a macho man though, thinks women are beneath him. So he goes out of his way to try and defeat Hippolyte, I think, Hippolyte? I never know how to pronounce Wonder Woman's mother's name, but either way, she bests him and defeats him, but he kind of plays her, and they end up, you know, enslaving the Amazon race and basically raping them, burning their city down and destroying them. None of this is kind of graphically shown, but it all pretty much is outlined, you know, how they're treated. And there's one or two scenes that kind of hint at really gruesome acts being played against the Amazonians. But again, they've got the gods on their side, they've got the female gods up on Mount Olympus helping them, and so they help them to escape and to overcome the supremacy, and then they send them to a new place, a safe place, what would be known as, you know, Themyscira, Paradise Island. And this is where it kind of gets very biblical as well as Greek mythology. It kind of, the two kind of intertwine, because Poseidon opens and parts the oceans for them to all go en masse to Paradise Island, and they make their new home there, seclusion, no men allowed, all that type of thing. And there was one final soul that was left that they didn't resurrect, that they had now kind of, that they'd almost been saving, and so they then sent that into this clay body that had been kind of sculpted by Hippolyte, and there we go, we've got Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman grows up, and it shows all of this kind of, you know, the exuberance of youth all her life. It explains a lot about the bracelets and explains a lot about Wonder Woman's outfit and loads of other things. It really goes into minute detail to try and explain Wonder Woman's dress, Wonder Woman's style, the whole community of Paradise Island. But ultimately, the first story arc is very much based on Wonder Woman's battle with Ares over the souls and future of mankind, really. One pushing peace and love and faith in the fellow human, the other just wanting war to enrich and strengthen themselves. And as is kind of based in the 80s, there's a lot of kind of Cold War politics going on. There's a lot of nuclear war threatening, but there's equally some really great kind of bad guys as well. Like Decay is probably one of my favourite villains in this. She is fantastic. Everything she kind of touches or gets involved with decays and rots, and she's a really interesting kind of bad guy, really. I didn't much like, you know, Ares' two sons, but again, each their own. I'm sure some people will like them, but in general, this first story arc was really solid. It was really good. It was really interesting. I enjoyed it more so than any other part of the book, really. Even though there's not much kind of in the way of battling, and Wonder Woman as a character is not too developed, she's still very much in her infancy, and she really relies overly on her lasso of truth to be this all-encompassing power. It very much feels like they've reintroduced her, but they don't know how far to push her skill set, her strength, and all these types of things. They're still kind of experimenting with what Wonder Woman can be and what she is. But ultimately, the first 6 issues were really solid and really tight arc, I thought. After that, it becomes a very mixed bag. Some things come up that are kind of slightly dated and slightly annoying as well. And I will say that this book, in general, there's a couple of points where, you know, it is a little dated and it is a little annoying and it can be off-putting some people. Like, for example, Cheetah has a manservant, you know, an assistant who helps her turn into the cheetah. and he is pretty much the only person in this book that speaks in a, you know, a localized kind of colloquial accent. The fact that he's a kind of a black man coming from Africa, and they make him talk in this kind of almost broken English way, it's just a little uncomfortable. I mean, it doesn't strike me as being accurate or that interesting, and it doesn't really add anything to the story. Like, you don't think, oh, that's authentic African dialect there. It just makes you feel a little uncomfortable, or did me at least. The most problematic part about the Cheetah story arc is that it's so anticlimactic. It builds and builds to this conflict between Wonder Woman and Cheetah, and then it fizzles out really, and there's no real interest. The only thing interesting about this story arc is, parallel to it, Wonder Woman is doing this media campaign, and I thought that was quite interesting, how she used, you know, a modern marketing manager to kind of, you know, create publicity and to create billboards and TV appearances, because she was almost trying to influence man's mind and get her voice out there en masse by manipulating the media all the time. And that was an interesting thing to do. It was very weird and jarring to go from this very biblical god Greek mythology story into a story where she's using modern media technology to influence the hearts and minds of people. So it's a bit weird, but it was all right. But the cheetah aspect of it was awful. I thought I really didn't like it. But again, the art was great. I love the art, so I can't really complain too much. And there is an issue as well that goes out of its way to do something that annoys the absolute life out of me with the big two. Because Wonder Woman was now part of, you know, the Justice League, she was still engaging with other DC characters, that they had to then kind of almost go out of their way to put the continuity of those other characters into this book. And so the development of Wonder Woman is happening in two places at once. It's happening in this book and then over in the other people's books and the Justice League books. So the way they got across this wealth of kind of exposition is they did an issue where essentially it's letters and diary extracts from different characters within Wonder Woman. And it started off okay, but then it kept going and kept showing me different, you know, perspectives and different elongated stories and diary extracts from different characters. And it just got a bit much, to be honest, particularly as the only comic book sections of it was that story of the cheetah coming to America to fight Wonder Woman. I can't imagine anyone really loving that story arc or enjoying it that much, to be honest, particularly after the strength of the first one. But then we go into a third story arc, and that's the final story arc in this book, where Wonder Woman is given tasks to complete for the gods. This is a bit of a weird one, I think, because again, one god is kind of infecting another god's thinking, very much in the same way as Heracles, Ares and Heracles was being influenced. Zeus is being influenced by an outside force, and he almost turns into this sex-mad nutter who just wants to have it away with Wonder Woman and all these other Amazonians, and he feels this is right to do so and things like that. And it's a bit weird. It's just a bit weird. But ultimately, it sets Wonder Woman on a path of discovering this force that lies beneath Paradise Island, this kind of ancient force that the Amazonians have been keeping at bay for centuries and centuries. Wonder Woman's been given the task of facing what's under the island. And the story arc is broken up into different sections where Wonder Woman is essentially facing different tasks, different beasts, different mythical creatures. But the strangest thing in the world happens with this. And again, it's an annoyance that happens frequently in DC and Marvel again. And, you know, they do it to themselves. It's part way through the storyline. Wonder Woman is in a place and she gets taken away and deals with one of the characters in a comic book that isn't collected here. And so the following issue then, you're given some really quick exposition. The Wonder Woman's gone away, fought this person, and now she's come back to finish what she started under Paradise Island. And it just destroys the flow of the whole end of the story arc. There's some really good points, but some really clunky story arcs and clunky work as well. Like the battles she has with these mythical creatures and the trials she goes through are good. But the clunkiness of how the story is told really shows, I think. And it's not the best at certain points. And even then, when it ends, you know, you get a resurgence of Heracles and him being reintroduced, and the things he does are kind of fine and almost like paying penance for his acts against the Amazonians. But then it almost goes a step too far by introducing a romantic relationship between him and another character, and it just felt a bit awkward. And I can't really describe, without ruining it too much, how awkward it felt, but it certainly didn't feel like the characters had that type of relationship, or should have that type of relationship, given the past that they've had. I mean, it would take a very significant amount of, you know, forgiveness and love to get to the place that Heracles gets to with another character at the end, and it just felt a bit weird. And it felt a bit kind of dated in many ways, in terms of kind of what women want and what women kind of need. If you like Wonder Woman, then this is a must-read, really, because it's a generation and a period of Wonder Woman that, as a fan, I think you'll get a lot from. But story-wise, there are better Wonder Woman stories out there, and that's a fact in my eyes. You know, Greg Rucka's, Rebirth story is really good. You know, even some Elseworld stories like Wonder Woman Dead Earth and things like that. And I always find that Wonder Woman works better as part of an ensemble cast as well. I adored Brian Azzarello's Wonder Woman run, and I think that brings Greek mythology and Greek melodrama together with Wonder Woman as a character really well and really strongly. You buy in this mainly, I feel, for the art, because never has Wonder Woman and the world of Wonder Woman looked so amazing. I mean, it looks so good. I mean, just everything about it looks wonderful, I think. And so, yeah, that's my opinions on Wonder Woman, Gods and Mortals. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and I will catch you on the next one.